In this video, I want to share my story of how I paid off over $225,000 of student loans in 2 years. Hopefully some of the ideas and tips will resonate with you and maybe help you reach your financial goals faster. If it's your first time, welcome. I'm Erika Kullberg, and be sure to subscribe to the channel because I'm here every Wednesday helping you get your money right. I graduated from law school with over $200,000 of student loans. When I think back to first getting into law school as a 21-year-old, the gravity of what it meant to go into 6 figures of debt just never hit me. It was very easy to take out the loans, so much so that it almost felt like monopoly money, and it was something I had to do to get to my dream of becoming a lawyer. And I'm embarrassed to say this, but even on graduation day, that gravity still hadn't hit me. It was much easier for me to just ignore it. I had my moment of panic months after graduation. I started getting all of these letters in the mail about grace period and forbearance, and I didn't know what any of those words meant. And that's when it finally hit me that I have hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt and can't just keep ignoring it. And it was overwhelming, and I remember feeling scared and a bit hopeless, but that moment of panic was enough for me to decide to sit down and actually do something about it. The weight that I felt in that moment, I wanted to get rid of it. I didn't want this debt to forever be looming over me, so that's what motivated me to do something about it. So let's talk about how I did it. My first step was to try to figure out my situation. Exactly how much did I owe? Who did I owe? How much interest was I paying? What do words like forbearance and grace period really mean? I think that week, I spent about 60 hours researching and learning everything I could. I remember spending a lot of time on the student loans subreddit. Having that moment of panic and deciding that I was actually going to face my student loans was so important because I'm quite certain that without it, I'd still just be making the minimum monthly payments for years to come. And I do want to take a moment to say that I know my numbers probably aren't the norm. Paying $200,000 in 2 years is a lot of money. Most people probably don't owe that much, and I know that I was really fortunate right after law school to get a job that allowed me to tackle that debt that aggressively. Once I figured out some of the key things and listed out all of my various loans, the type of loan, and the interest rate, then it was about setting an action plan. In this video, I talk about ways to budget to meet your goals, so you can watch that after this video, but I think one of the best things I did after coming up with my budget was I set an actual date that I wanted to be student loan free, my student loan payoff date. The way I figured out this date was after I came up with my budget, I knew that if I stayed within my budget each month, I would be able to put a certain dollar amount towards my student loans, in addition to the minimum required payment. So then I just calculated how many months, how many years I would need to do that to reach zero. Also, once I set the student loan payoff date, I told other people about that goal. I told my sister and my best friend so that there was that element of accountability. The reason why setting the actual date was so important for me is because it made my goal of being debt-free feel attainable. Instead of just mindlessly chipping away at my student loans, every payment I made, I knew it was to get closer to that goal. It also forced me to learn how to budget and track my expenses so that I wasn't aiming for an arbitrary date. I knew that if I could stick with my budget, I'd hit my goal. Another thing that I did to get to my goal was refinancing my student loans. I remember it was on Reddit that I learned about student loan refinancing, which I hadn't heard about before, and a lot of people were talking about refinancing their student loans with SoFi. So I started learning more to see if refinancing could be part of my action plan and help me pay off my loans faster. I remember being on a call with a SoFi customer service representative and in typical lawyer fashion had this whole list of questions to ask. I had them written down. I remember one was, what's the difference between debt snowball and debt avalanche? I also wanted to know about the possible tax benefits you could get for interest paid on your student loans and the difference between consolidating and refinancing. And this representative was so helpful and made me feel so at ease. I think it was a 2-hour phone call. I did end up refinancing with SoFi, and if you want a little laugh, you can see that I sent an email to SoFi after the call. I think it's funny that I said in the email, I can guarantee you I will be a happy customer. And now, not only did I refinance my loans with SoFi and pay them all off, but it's come full circle where now I'm lucky enough to be an ambassador for SoFi and am trying to make the student loan process less daunting for others, the way SoFi did for me years ago when I had 2 hours worth of questions for them. Refinancing isn't for everyone, but it was a great decision for me, not just for the obvious reason that I was able to lower the interest rate and save thousands of dollars on my student loans, but it also made paying off my student loans seem less daunting because instead of 9 different loans I had to worry about that were serviced by 2 different loan servicers, I just had one, and the platform was very user-friendly and I felt very supported. In addition to setting a budget and refinancing, one of the things I did to pay off my student loans was to check my progress every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks for those 2 years, I sat down and took a look at my budget and expenses to see how I was doing. I had a set dollar amount for how much extra I needed to pay towards my student loans each month above the minimum required payment. So if I was a little off target, I knew that I had to try to be a little more frugal the next 2 weeks so that I could get back on track. To save up, I was doing things like bringing my own lunch to work and walking to work, but the biggest thing was cutting out and preventing as much unnecessary spending as I could. For those 2 years, I didn't buy new clothing. I unsubscribed from all marketing emails, so I wasn't tempted to take advantage of the latest Sephora sale. Of course, this was before COVID, but I also learned how to do all of my travel with credit card points. Also, this is something that the lawyer in me decided to do. For anything like insurance or employee benefits, I made sure to read the handbook or manual from cover to cover to really understand all of the benefits. There are probably a lot of benefits that you have that you aren't taking advantage of simply because they're hidden in the fine print. For example, one of the credit cards I use has baggage delay insurance, which meant that if my bag was delayed, they would reimburse the things I had to buy as a result of the delay. So I got in some free shopping because inevitably, when my bag was delayed, I knew how to make use of that benefit. Same thing with work benefits. I made sure I studied them from cover to cover, and as I'm sure you can guess, I took full advantage of them to save me money. My mission was I really tried to avoid something called lifestyle inflation. It's basically where, because you're earning more, you feel the need to spend more to reward yourself. But those 2 years, I just told myself that I was still a broke law student, so even though I was fortunate enough to be at this big law firm with a nice salary, I didn't want that to get into my head and impact spending. So I really tried not to allow these extra luxuries to creep into my lifestyle. And it's much easier to do that and never add these things into your spending in the first place so that you prevent that lifestyle inflation than to go the other route, which is that you increase your spending and enjoy and get used to those extra things like online shopping sprees and then have to cut back on those. And now you might feel deprived or like you're missing out. Just a little under 2 years after I set that goal to become student loan free, I made my very last payment, and it was the best feeling in the world. I felt so free and like I didn't have this huge weight on my shoulders anymore. And I started a YouTube channel to help others get out of debt and take control of their finances. I'm really passionate about spreading this message that being in debt, or really anything related to finances, like learning about investing, can seem scary and intimidating and overwhelming. They don't really teach you about money in school, and that's why I think I felt embarrassed and ashamed when I graduated with over $200,000 of debt and didn't know what terms like forbearance meant. But if we take these little steps, like learning about these words and setting goals and saving to get there, then there is a finish line and you can reach whatever your financial goals are. And when you reach your financial goals, it also helps you to realize your ambitions. So that's my story, and if you're ready to achieve your financial goals, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Then I'll see you next in this video where I teach you how to set a plan to meet your financial goals.